Hey there. So, for the tens, if not hundreds, of Studio HFL fans, I'd like to say hello, welcome back. I would like to let you know that I've got some more interviews finally coming out. In 2017, I started these interviews. First 50 or so were audio only, and then, of course, thanks to COVID and Zoom, I was able to get video for most of the rest of these interviews. And then life went back to somewhat normal, and I stopped editing, and it's been bugging me for some time. So finally, the pendulum has swung the other direction, and here I am finally editing and getting these interviews out. Now, early on, I had sponsors. I wouldn't have been able to have quite the success for the podcast that I did without them. Of course, that includes, in no particular order, Eastman Music Company and S.E. Shires, Chop Saver, thank you, Dan Gosling, Austin Custom Brass, Hammond Design, Pickett, Blackburn, and Messina Covers. I think that's it. Anyways, and also to some Patreon subscribers, so thank you ever so much. Oh yeah, if during the interview you are so moved to like and subscribe, then please do. Don't worry, this is my only ask. You won't see or hear about that again. So, now without further ado, on with the interview.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you. How many people have you got roped into this so far?
It's nobody's ever phrased it quite that way. I have done, I think I counted yesterday, this would be 141.
That's a lot of folks.
It's a lot of folks, and a couple of those are repeats. Vince a couple of times, Doc a couple of times, Roger Ingram a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly I went back to them because my first interview with them was audio only. This was before Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, Zoom is really amazing. There are a lot of interesting things. I don't know what we do without it at this point.
Well, I think we'd still be left with Skype and hoping that there wasn't that lag that Skype had become famous for. But no, in fact, when I started teaching on Zoom back in March, like almost everybody else, the technology within Zoom has already, gone up exponentially. It's so much better even than 6 months, 8 months ago.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, yeah. So,
it's been around a lot longer, I guess, than I was aware of. Well, my wife is just retired from the LA Phil in August, just in the nick of time.
yeah.
And she has her own business, college counseling, and whereas we used to have all of her clients come to the house, and then we had an office in the front and all that stuff. Now it's all switched over to Zoom. Even when this is over, probably most of those people will still do that because
Right.
he was getting people driving an hour and a half to get here.
Yes.
Anyway, so where are you? Wow, this is an incredible project you've got going. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's 2 years this week that I put mine out, my first episode out November 18th, 2018. And had no idea it was going to have this kind of reach or scope. And it's been great. I have thoroughly enjoyed every single person that I've spoken to, and with the exception of a couple of really young and inexperienced players who I didn't realize didn't have stories yet to share.
Make some right here and now.
Well, yeah. So it was kind of like pulling, I had to keep prompting them to tell me more and tell me more, but they were young and it was still a good interview, but, no, it's been a blast, and, people seem to really enjoy, listening to these, and, people want to hear, people want to hear from you. They want to hear from a legend. So,
okay.
So, well, I do, because the more I talk, it's like your name comes up, Vince's name always comes up, Conrad Gazzo, within certain circles, it's like always there are these names that rise to the top. And And again, this is why I contacted you. And actually what prompted it was that email that you sent out where you were shifting your publishing company to, remind me where it's going.
Carl Fisher.
Carl Fisher. Yeah. So, and that's where I thought, now's the time I need to get in touch with you. And so here you are, and I'm grateful that you're giving me some time today. So,
well, it's been quite a, well, let me just go ahead and answer your question, since I think you probably have some sort of program.
no, I don't.
No?
No preset questions. What I like to do is, find out, like, what are you doing right now? What's occupying your time these days?
Less and less. I showed a student the other day. My schedule, my weekly schedule. I put chlorine in the pool on Monday morning, that the pool guy left on Friday. On Tuesday at 11, I have a Pilates session. I've been with her for 3 years. Then, boy, that's for me is the real figure in terms of mobility and being able to function. Okay, or Wednesday, Thursday, or the gardener comes, so you have to be out of there. Don't come anywhere, Anybody who's on the property there's considered to be a tower of pestilence now, so everybody has to avoid that. It's okay. And then Friday afternoon, this afternoon, I have another Pilates work, and that's it. Now, those are my appointments.
Sure.
A week. Yeah, big deal. Last week I had a student, a kid, she's doing her audition tapes or videos for schools.
Mm-hmm.
And she had done some work with Roy Poper, and she had my audition books and so forth. And she takes lessons from one of my former students here in town. So she wanted a copy. A copy?
Freudian slip.
Yeah. And so that was very, very instructive. And I was reminded of, I thought of myself at that age. And then I went and crawled into a hole. So when I came out, and I don't think I was so different than she is. And what I realized is she had pretty good command of the trumpet, but she didn't have a clue about the music.
Oh, wow.
And this is not uncommon. And then that's what, if you really get involved in, I think it must be a great thing. Clifford Lilia had a wonderful life. I think being involved with, and you, Bill Adam, and all these other guys that we revere so highly, that carry us through our formative years, in which those unbelievable leaps of progress between the freshman and senior years and a couple of years more. Oh, brother, it's like jetpack. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's what a great opportunity if you come across a great teacher, one that works with you. Boy, that's a lucky day.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she was doing ba-da-dum, and I said, yeah, but your phrasing is all backwards. Huh? Ba-da-dum, those are not the principal notes in the phrase. And then the idea of have a violinist play it for you. Watch what they do. See how they bow it. I mean, it's a great environment of discovery when you can open up somebody's ears saying, oh my God. And I mean, I don't know, does anybody who like to listen to themselves, their vocal quality?
It's taken me, I'm still not used to hearing my own voice, when I go back and edit these podcasts, but the same thing with playing, it sounds foreign to us, right? We're on the wrong side of the bell.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot of dust and debris in here that has to filter through. You know,
Yeah. It's interesting that you say have a violinist play, or what I'm using some Mahler songs from Das Knaben Wunderhorn. There's a nice little collection of 10 or so pieces that have been transcribed for trumpet. And I use those for phrasing, but I tell my students, I said, and I think I'm actually going to incorporate this. I said, I'm going to have you find the German text and write it in, because once you see where the hard consonants and the soft consonants and the commas and the periods, and then you can understand phrasing. You can understand how it's not, if you were to put lyrics to the ballerina solo, right? I mean, wouldn't that make a huge difference if you actually knew?
oh, sure. Yes. A lot of guys, Mel Broyles and Petzarella, you know, make up stories for these agents or something. Here comes the night. Da, da, and there's the lady. Well, you know, it enlivens it. Otherwise, it's just like it's piecework.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, Tom got in trouble one time when he referred to the studio play as I'm gonna forget now. Oh, data entry.
Mm.
That made those other guys really mad. Uh, but when it all comes down to it, an awful lot of times, even in the orchestra, that's what we're doing too.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
learn to do it well and musically.
Yeah.
As I would say to him one time, so, okay, that was the end of that concert. Very good job. As your reward, you get to come back and try it again tomorrow and the day after that. How many times until we break you? Wow, what a life.
Right.
It's that's just looking at it from one angle. You've got to spin the statue around and see it from all angles. I think that that's a good idea, Larry. And I think anything to get the student waked up to the larger picture. And if we can't teach them to start opening up and being curious about music, like another way I told this girl, I said, imagine that you're sitting out in the field, leaning up against a tree, and this music comes out of the sky. There's no instrument involved whatsoever. How is it shaped? Excuse me. I'll let you edit that.
Yeah, for sure.
It is probably, at first, completely foreign notion, but you do have to let go of the preconceived notions that you have been building up as you're practicing this stuff. And then say, okay, what would it be like without anything? What about if I just went over and I fell into the pool, but I never touched the water and I just sort of flew across and then got up on the other side? Well, obviously it makes me practically speechless, which is pretty considerable. I think that's more than anything with that kind of imaginary, mystical, no, but expansionist thinking, the musical. I think that's what we miss most because we are so involved with getting high F. And it used to be high C.
Right.
You see how much progress we've made in 50 years? Now it's F and G. Well, not here. But because the trumpet is such a mechanical problem, we have tended to open up the hood, dive in, and when you see a trumpet player at work, all you see is legs and butt. And if the car, it doesn't matter if it's a VW or a Ferrari, they can't see that by the time you get your head stuck in the engine. Anyway, that's my rant. I think
I like that. I love the analogy of that too. I think that's brilliant. So, you know, this makes me think, and you alluded to this a second ago, you're talking about your student, imagining what it was like, you know, to be that young again. But so what were you like as a young student? Where were you in this thought process? Did you already have that kind of maturity when you approached music?
I still don't. Ask the family. No, I was very lucky to be born when I was. Um, I started out in seventh grade. Within a couple of years, I decided, oh, I want to do music. And I mentioned that to my parents, and they looked like Halloween cats. You can't make a living doing that. Oh, okay. So I went underground, mm, just did my studies and muddled through, and I did take lessons for a better part of a year when I was in ninth grade, but then I was coerced to stop taking them so that I would pick up my grades. Didn't pick up my grades, and I never started very, and I became interested in Miles Davis, and that was that for the remainder. And during junior high and no, during junior year and senior year, I read the whole basic writings of Sigmund Freud, and I was getting very interested in psychology. And so I'm going to try to do this quickly. Um, I applied to various schools. I was figuring it's probably going to get an Albion in Michigan, but I did apply also to University of Michigan. I thought, yeah, sure. But I got in. Well, that was that. Of course, I'm going to do that. And I managed to flunk out of liberal arts within one semester. But I had about 3 or 4 guys on the floor in my dormitory who were in the music school. And the way they talked about what goes on over there, and I said, yeah, that's really where I need to be. So I managed to transfer over to music school in the second semester. And my intention was to be a jazz player. And
Well, you missed that mark, didn't you?
well, for a while, I mean, for a while I was, but in the long run, I mean, I got captured by the orchestral music. And also I realized I don't like to stay up as late as you have to if you're going to be a jazz player. I mean, let's be practical about this for once. So anyway, so I ended up in Michigan for 6 years because there was one semester in liberal arts that was dumped. Then the rest of the classwork and so forth. Then in my junior year, junior or senior? I think junior year, our jazz band was chosen to go on a State Department tour of South America for 3.5 months, January through May. And that was quite an experience. 79 concerts in 100 days, all over the place. You couldn't do it unless you were young, you know. And anyway, and then in the end of it, we got caught in the Dominican Revolution, and we ended up being evacuated by the Marines. And oh yeah, it was. We had adventures. There is somewhere on YouTube. After all was said and done, years later, I made a 30-minute slide presentation of that tour, and I should send you the link. It's somewhere on YouTube. U of M, University of Michigan Jazz Band Tour 1965. That might get you to find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that could be interesting. I mean, we ended up having a 44 or 45th year anniversary reunion in Ann Arbor a bunch of years ago, and actually played again at the too many memories, right?
Well, no, that's, and I mean, not everybody can share that kind of story. I mean, to go on tour and then become an international incident, that's pretty unique.
We also realized that we'd been put there. We were being used, those Americans, because, well, if you think these days are crazy, when we went in there and then the Marines come in, to save us, well, that was their excuse for being able to jump into that country. And here I am, after 3 months, and then you look up in the sky, holy crap. I mean, look, there's America, and everybody's just hooking like that. Right. And then one of the Marines told us that they'd been given 16 rounds of ammunition.
That was it.
That was, So what could you do with that? You could scare somebody, but you couldn't really do mass murder. Maybe that was a stroke of genius, who knows? Or maybe it was a stroke of idiocy.
Mhm.
I don't know. And, oh, but then, well, I don't know. Well, it was a long time ago, right?
Mhm.
A couple of years after, when we were evacuated by the Marines out of Santo Domingo, we could only take what we could carry. And so we left a lot of stuff back in the downtown warehouse or something after the concert had been there. And the guys, the university people and our State Department people said, well, guys, we don't know if there's any hope in this, but fill these forms out and tell us what you've lost, what the worth of it is, and, we're just for our records. Okay. So I lost a flugelhorn there, which some kids said he saw on a television shot from Santo Domingo a few months later that some guy was playing it. Anyway, they said, but probably nothing will happen with this, but just for our records, blah, blah. So my $400 flugelhorn, kissed that goodbye. Well, a year and a half later, I was at Tanglewood, and one day went up to the main house to get the mail. And a bunch of my friends were with me. Then we all sat out on the stoop and looked at our mail, and I said, oh, wow, I got something from Michigan. And I opened it up and I unfolded it, and there's this check for $400. I said, holy cow, guys, look at this. And I said, and then I started to read a letter. Dear Rob, this check is to cover the loss of your flugelhorn from the tour. We only ask you two things in return. Number one, cash it immediately. Number two, don't tell anybody you got this. And the check was drawn on a personal account from McLean, Virginia. You put 2 and 3 together and come up.
Yeah.
But, and that whole thing, it was crazy enough. There was, this side was left of that side, and it was incredible. And what was I, 22 years old at that point? I hadn't even gone into the Army yet. And here it is 50 years later, and says, well, pretty much the same.
Right.
So anyway, that was story. Yeah, you're right. Not everybody has experience like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if those cultural, they were trying to get some groups to go into South America so they could tail along, because this was, Che Guevara and Castro, and they really wanted to try to keep tabs on what was going on. So
Sure.
the best way to do that, I guess, from their standpoint, was to have a couple of innocent guys tagging along with the band. And then they'd go off at night and make contact or something. I don't know. Anyway, we had our thing with music and chiropectate, and the rest of it is history.
I want to back up for just a second. At Michigan, who were you studying with?
Clifford Lilia.
Oh,
And this is the other piece of my best luck of my life. So when I went to Michigan to be a psychology major and flunked out within one semester, I didn't know who the trumpet teacher was. I was just going to music school where there were like 800 people, and everybody referred to you by your first name instead of your social security number. And so Cliff was the first teacher really that I had.
wow.
And I was a freshman, and I'd never seen a sea trumpet. I had an old cornet, and I played a piece for him, Concertino by Paul Duval or something. Petite Piece Concertante, that I'd played in a high school or junior high school, whatever. But here at the very beginning, I remember, okay, we're doing scales, and I would play a scale, and he said, "No, that's good. Oh, great. Well, can you give it some shape?" do something with it. And it wasn't crazy like melodrama. It was just not do. So right there, and from there on, for the next 6 years, it was always, he had a marvelous way of getting a point across very gently. You know, a lot of us beat ourselves up. We don't need a teacher to say, oh, that's not a nice. But if it wasn't quite just stuff, it was more like he would refrain from being as praiseworthy as usual. And you knew it. You didn't want to do that again.
Kathy Leach speaks very highly of him. Yeah. And, you know, of course, I never had an opportunity to study with him, but I've gotten his books, and I can at least get a glimpse of, you know, what he was putting in front of his students. But to be able to hear from you that he's the kind of teacher that he was is terrific.
It was also, he was very, I showed Tom Stevens one time. I said, well, you might want to look at this article. One of these old articles that Cliff wrote about in the defense of the polka that was in one of the early MSBOA publications or something. And he read it. He came back the next day and says, this guy's too smart to be a trumpet player. And he meant it exactly. If you read that article, you get a glimpse of what it is that he is trying to impart to his students. And it's very, very hard to put into words. That's why you need a really gifted teacher to do this. And that was what he was. And yet one time I know his wife went back when he was 70. I was over at their house, and his wife Helen was talking to me about one of the other gals, almost as if she was trying to set us up, you know. And was, oh, I think, you know, she knows what's what. Don't you think so, Cliff? And he looked up from his martini, and he said, what's what? I'm still working on that. And it was this, he, whatever you read of his, he was very, very careful about innuendo or about people getting a wrong impression depending upon if you were sloppy. One of the stories he told about that is that there was an article long ago about Magyar or Vakiana or somebody from the Boston area. There was a description of their tonguing scheme. And it was TAR, 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 TAR. And he said, a lot of people took this and they tried to put an R on the end, just the way, you know, you turn a canoe paddle at the end of the stroke in order to correct your direction. You kept trying to put this R on the back of it. He says, what they don't realize is that in Boston, you don't say tar, you say ta. So you have to watch out for that.
Right.
Especially with more and more international, you have to be careful. And always less is more, both in language and, you know.
Yeah.
That's why nothing can replace the one-on-one. You can teach the world to sing, but you only need to teach one person at a time to have enough for a lifetime to be happy with. And really, truly contacted another person and open up their ear and their eye to something. I'm sorry. I'm ready to go. I hope I can do more of that, but if I can't, okay, fine. Check me out.
Was Mr. Lilia supportive of your focus on jazz?
Yeah, he wasn't unsupportive, not at all. Maybe he knew what was going to happen in the long run. That was when I was the freshman year, I was in Animal Band, right, with George Cavender down on the basement. And then the next year, my God, this is my sophomore year. Just about this time, right about Thanksgiving, all of a sudden there was a rumble upstairs in the symphony band, and I was called to be up in Ravelli's band, and they put me on first trumpet. Okay, That's cool. I guess. Now, some of your people, especially from the Midwest, may have a lot of good memories about Delaware Valley. And I wouldn't want to offend them. I'll just say that the next year's coming into junior year, I had been signed up for orchestra, band, and jazz band. Well, not signed up for jazz band. You should know that at that time when we took that tour with University of Michigan Jazz Band, no, that was heretical. They thought jazz was officially the music of the devil.
Wow.
And we had to do all our rehearsals and stuff on our own, be created in the basement of this building or that building. And it was incredible. Yeah. And then I got, all right, so there I was first trumpet in the symphony band, as opposed to first cornet, which was the really important guy. And I was, I guess the symphony band auditions, you had to audition each time anyway. It was at like 4:00 in the afternoon. And it was the first rehearsal for the orchestra was just before that in the same room, big room at Harris Hall. And so way before the end of the first orchestra rehearsal, I just said, whoa, so this is incredible. Think of all these other sounds that I would be blending with and imitating and all that. I mean, this is like we're walking into a room and suddenly it's color instead of black and white. And I said, so there's no way I'm not going on the band. So I ducked after orchestra rehearsal. I went out the back door and that was it. I didn't show up for band rehearsal. And so for the next 2 or 3 years, of course, I was persona non grata in Ravelli's eyes. You know, it's all right. He'd had plenty of other people who.
Well, but you were making a choice for yourself. I mean, you're thinking about your own future, right? And I'm going to throw this in there. I see too often directors try to, because they need somebody for their band, right? It's more about what you could do for them than they can do for you. So, yeah, and thank goodness, right? I mean, you may not have had the career you've had if not for that.
Well, there were a few. You have to have that level of. I mean, I think it helps a lot if you have that level of independence, in order to get where you're going way down the road there. Now, most of the people who were in the band were probably going to try to rely on Ravelli's recommendation for them to get a band teaching job in high school, because that's what most of them were doing. I too was a music education major, but I did that because in more music performance, you had to play in the band. And I said, that's no deal. And besides, if I go to audition for an orchestra, they don't give a damn what your degree is in. I mean, one of the guys, Bob Haley in the West Point band, we just retired a few years ago from the New York City Opera and the ballet and stuff. They'd been doing that all. He was a civil engineer. Doesn't matter. It's the material. Can you play? Hey, that was lousy. Bye. Or no, I would carry. Yeah. So it was just like, I don't know. And I went over to Cliff's house that afternoon and I told him what I had done. And all he said was, he says, when you make a move, you want to make sure that you're going towards something and not just away from something else.
Brilliant.
I mean, that's about as universal as one of the quotes that I collected from Eric Leinsdorf during a rehearsal, which was, we do it to ourselves. And I find that simple epigram applies everywhere, anywhere you're doing stuff, from spilling the milk on the floor to getting involved with the wrong person to, anyway, there we go. Profundity 101.
Well, that's terrific. Okay, I want to follow another thread. You had mentioned the service. Where, when, how long?
3 years minus 10 days. West Point band. After I had finished up as I said, it was 6 years at Michigan because one semester was in liberal arts, one semester was on that tour, and then I went back supposedly to work on a master's degree, which I didn't finish because I took a couple courses that weren't in their program. But I did my recital and like that. So I was there for 6 years. At the end of that this was like 1967. I had been to Tanglewood 2 summers in 66 and 67. And the midst of the Vietnam War, you had to make a choice. So that choice there was, okay, I could go to Canada where my father was born, but not be able to come back. You can't, just what do we do there? Cast around and look at the various service bands, and fortunately, West Point band had a possibility, and I sent them a tape of my master's degree recital. The degree I never got, but I did the recital, and I got accepted from that. And so from there, in September of 1967, I showed up at Fort Dix in New Jersey and began a 3-year odyssey in the West Point band, marching 4 parades a week, months out of the year. Lots of adventures. It was a good band, and lots of good friends were made there because we were all in the same boat. There were probably, I don't know, half to 2/3 of the band were lifers, and the rest of us were short timers and not especially cooperative. Because as growing up and going through 6 years, let's say, of Michigan, and to be an orchestral or a classical musician, and to get up, on your own and stand there and play, taking that kind of discipline and the idiocy from which it flowed was hard to take. I think it brought me down. Oh, you should know also, when I was at Tanglewood, when I was younger, I was a jerk. I think, I don't know where it came from, but I had a lot of confidence. Now, in one thing, I know that the confidence is something that can be fragile, and you need to be careful of it. Cliff Lilia was very nurturing a sense of confidence because he knew how intimately it was tied into your ability to breathe and blow correctly. And Lord knows, he had lots and lots of students who needed help sorting things out. And you know what that's like. But at any rate, that confidence was probably brought down somewhat, but I was still cocky. When I was at Tanglewood at Tanglewood, the first year I was there in 66, I ended up winning the Albert Scolding Prize for Most Promising Musician. So, see, I had kind of an encouraging start. And anyway, then I learned a lot about the Army. As I've told somebody last week, it's a sort of thing like I would never want to do that again. But by the same token, I would never want to have that experience excised from my database. So it was tough. But I learned another thing too, that you can basically do anything that you have to do. Most of us don't come up with anything like that unless your mother's pinned under the car and suddenly you find you can lift it off. Of course, you break your back in the process, but hey, it was mom. So there were those things. And then after that, I got into the Baltimore Symphony. Another stroke of luck. I was casting around there for what openings were there now when I was going to get out of the band. Well, we went to Montreal, was looking for a principal, and I got into those auditions and one or two other places. But Baltimore, I knew that Don Tyson was there when he had been a former student of Cliff Lilia's, and he had been in the New Orleans orchestra for, I don't know, 15 years or something before he went up to Baltimore, because he won that audition and then went back there and they wouldn't give him a $5 raise. So he said, well, I guess I'm moving. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Have you talked to him? Have you?
No.
What? That might be interesting. Incredible player. Anyway, and he lives in North Carolina now. He's about 83. Anyway, I did get a hold of Don, and he said, well, yeah, we do. Actually, we have 2 openings, but the personnel manager forgot to put any announcement in the International Musician. And I said, oh, thank you. I went down there, and they had local auditions, that such as it was. Wilmer Weiss had been in the position, but he was leaving, of the assistant principal, third and assistant. And anyway, they had these 2 openings, and that they were like 7 of us showed up, and Langston Fitzgerald got one job, and I got the other, and that was the way it was. I thought I'd be there, oh man, 2-3 years, and then I'd be out of there to someplace really, really famous. Well, 11 years later, when I'd had my education applied liberally to me, I finally did manage to get here. And if I hadn't, of course, life would have been totally different.
Yeah. So that was Baltimore and then LA. That was the 2 orchestras. Wow.
Yeah. When I was in school in Michigan, I played second in Toledo Symphony for a couple of years. And I liked playing second. But one day in the practice room at Michigan, I was playing a scale, and suddenly I realized, man, that's kind of out of tune. And then I wonder why. And then that's Bernie's scale. He's the first player. I said, well, I matched him pretty well, but we're out of tune, man.
Yeah.
So that was another ear-opening experience.
Yeah. Well, isn't that kind of the role of a second trumpet player, is to match and to make the first guy sound great, right?
Absolutely. So to make his job easier, if at all you can, and to match. And I would tell you that in the 18 years that I played with Tom Stevens, the most satisfying moments were passages that we had in unison, which were totally, totally perfect in every way. And it was I think one reason that they selected me for the job, they could hear there was a compatibility. Indeed, Tom had been at West Point, and then Malcolm McNabb took his place, and then I went in after Malcolm. So Tom and we knew Building 685. We knew the supply sergeant. We knew all that other stuff in leaf raking and the whole 9 yards. So there was a lot of common things. But we would do things like be in the locker room downstairs, not even talking to each other, but literally both be playing the same passage. I mean, it's telepathic. It's not intentional. It was just, you get on. This is something you don't, freelance folks think that, I'm really happy being able to change partners all the time, and it keeps the water fresh and so forth. Yeah, that's true. But I don't think they ever get to the point where after 15 years, you become so immersed with someone that if it's working on that musical level way down deep, it just melds. And you can't do that with everyone.
I was going to say professionally, I can see that. But what about, were you guys close friends as well? No. And I asked that because I kind of have heard a little bit about his demeanor.
Yeah. There's one of my other friends said, that's great, but don't think Tom is your friend, because he's not your friend. Now, the thing is, he didn't have to be my friend to have this happen. And in fact, I would even say that it's probably better that we were not friends. That level of, what's a word that's sort of half intimate? Not really. There's something in the middle there. That can be a distraction, a very important and dangerous distraction. Just like we never basically after the first week I was there, we never tuned up. We never talked about pitch. We never talked about how we're going to do this or that. None of this was lifted out of the music, put into language, plugged in, tried to reconvert and play it back. This was right brain to right brain.
Wow.
No necessary. No, it's hard for me. And you can think, Jesus, this guy never stopped talking himself.
And I'm grateful for that.
What was I going to say? We wouldn't talk about stuff. We would just do it. It was right brain to right brain. I said that already. And in that way, it was much more solid.
Mm-hmm.
Every little shape of each note was the same. It was like the ink is stonework. You couldn't slide a razor blade in there. Now, with other people, I could do that too, but I had to think about it. I had to work with other players, the first players that I've played with, who's more tiring. With Tom, we all have a certain tendency of a rhythmic tendency if we're going to go forward or we're kind of lean back, or a pitch tendency one way or the other. With Tom, my tendencies and his tendencies were much more alike. So there was a lot of that stuff that was just like, boom. And then with someone else, it was much like, okay, I think I know what he wants and what he's going to do. He's going to, and I was tiring. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I prided myself on being able to do it. I don't know, you'd have to ask that person how well I did it or whether he had a better, more copacetic experience with someone else in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Who was playing third alongside you through those years?
Boyd Hood.
For the whole 18 that you were there?
Yeah, and then another 108.
So, I mean, the consistency then, right? I mean, what a great section. That might be, 18 years might be the longest any section had been together.
Just about 6 months after I came there. And then the following year, Don Green got the associate principal. Yeah, so that four of us were together until Tom left. And he didn't even really have to leave, but he wanted to. And I think it was a good thing. He says, I just don't want to be around here to a point where if I'm playing and the people start looking at their shoes. And so he left just before the age of 62. And I did the same thing a few years later for the same reason, but I could afford it. He could afford it because he did a lot of studio jobs before and he had a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah.
I could do it because my wife was 12 years younger and she was still in the music library. And so we had 2 kids then. And I said, why should I, my hearing was starting to get funny and I'm not nearly as agile as I once was. And Esapeka kept throwing all kinds of crazy music at us. Why should I do this for another 3 years just to get to Medicare when I could be spending more time ferrying the kids around? So it was that.
Yeah.
It was good. It's very good. If I didn't realize when I retired, I would have had no idea whatsoever that I would have been going back once in a while for the next 6 years. I mean, 4 months after I retired, and I was just like, oh my God, I got out of there. Whew. And then they called me and said, you know what? First week of January, we have a Deutsche Grammophon recording to do of Rite of Spring and Miraculous Mandarin. And we don't have your, obviously we don't have your replacement yet. No. Would you consider coming back and doing that? And I've been through a lot of stuff that will never go on your podcast. But by the time I got out of it, I said, yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And because I'd gone through all that other stuff and come out of it, then when I went back to play with the band, it was the freest I've ever been.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
So then it was, and they only called me for the parts that where they weren't sure some of the students in town could handle. So I got a whole list of, for Church Durham, Mahler 5, or what have you, Loretta Spring, of course, and a bunch of stuff, all the hairy stuff. But I had time to rest in between. And then a former student of mine, Dave Washburn, who was his principal with the LA Chamber Orchestra, he got me to sub for him a few times. And so each year I was playing first in the chamber orchestra for a couple concerts. And I enjoyed that because a lot of those people I had been, boy, you really got me talking. A lot of those people I had been familiar with and colleagues were at the Oregon Bach festivals back in the 70s when I was still in Baltimore. And I walked back into the chamber orchestra and I was, holy crap, where are you guys been? I just spent 24 years in the Philharmonic like a detour, and back to them again. And it was a lark. It was great.
Yeah. I'm looking at the time, and there's so much more. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. Is it possible that we could continue this next week? Or the week, next week's Thanksgiving, but maybe the week after, just pick up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you'll maybe have some more, well, obviously you don't have to have too many specific questions to get me started.
Which is great. No, and what I would like to know is a little bit more about your time, of course, and the LA Philharmonic. And of course, I want to talk to you about your publications.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be some more great ground to cover, but I am coming up on the hour, and I have a recording session.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but socially distanced. So
Yeah.
what a treat to meet you. And yeah, thank you. I'll be in touch, and we'll set it up again.
I think that the publishing thing should be interesting.
Yeah, very much so. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.